Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Nick Bullitt, the engagement catalyst here at OneSpirit, and I'm very excited to be sitting here today with Reverend Dr. Ed O'Malley. How are you? Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Nick, for inviting me to do this.
Sure. And so you have an upcoming workshop that we're going to speak a little bit about. But before we do that, if you could, please share a little bit about your spiritual background as well as your professional background.
Sure. Well, I've had quite a varied background. I've been around a few decades, so I've had a chance to explore lots of different ways of trying to understand the world and how things work. I did a PhD in neurobiology, and so I continued my explorations into spirituality by attending OneSpirit Interfaith Seminary back in the day. And that was in 2008, I graduated and got ordained. During that time, and between those two sort of bookends, I did a lot of nature work because I've always just loved nature, and I knew I could feel spirit in nature, and I wanted to know what that relationship was about. So I did some training with Tom Brown Jr. down at the Tracker School in New Jersey, did a lot of wilderness training, and really I became certified in teaching nature awareness, but I had to do that before I was ordained because I wanted nature to inform my ministry, and it has ever since. So I've done, since teaching in ecotherapy. Ecotherapy is about finding the ways we reconnect with nature that helps us heal. And for me, that means finding spirit in nature. I was introduced into shamanic energy medicine. It has a way of relating to everything, to spirit in nature, to spirit in people, and how we need to come into balance with all of that in order for us to be, again, living well. And so I brought it all back into my practice here, where I still do a lot of sleep work. I do shamanic work. I do spirituality now, and was invited to join the faculty in the interspiritual counseling program about 5 years ago. That has enabled me to sort of really marry everything together in this workshop, in this proposal that I use now called Meeting Soul in Nature.
Right. So that's a profound title. What does it mean to meet the soul in nature?
A lot of the religious practices are ascension practices. You know, it's about going up and connecting with spirit and getting out of our bodies and going to the happy place. And I've always felt that we're physically incarnated in these physical bodies in this physical world, and we can sense the spirit behind all of nature. So how do those two meet? And so for me, spirit, the oneness of all spirit is what we ascend to, but our soul sort of descends down into the earth to have this physical experience and to be a unique expression of that spirit. And so this unique expression of spirit in me is my soul, and I take that out to find the unique expression of spirit in nature. And so there are practices that I've developed based on all my experiences for ways to do that.
And so when you speak about nature, are you talking about being out and about in the forest? Are you talking about specific things? Like, can you elaborate a little bit more on your perspective of nature?
And nature is everything. So I start there. I mean, the bricks behind you, the wood in the altar, the metal in the bowl, you know, the chime bowl, the Australian didgeridoo. I mean, these are all formations of nature that we've modified, we've edited, we've changed, but they still hold that essence. Maybe it's moving a little more slowly than it does out in the natural world. But everything is nature, including us. So we are an integral aspect of nature. We've been evolved by nature to be who we are. We've been created to be here, to be an integral part of this world, this natural world. So something would be lost, something huge would be lost if we couldn't find a way to survive here. So nature is everything, but we really experience it when we get outside.
Mm-hmm.
So like the next dimension of nature is when we step outside, because now we're in the entire cosmos. There's nothing between us and the sun and the stars and the planets and the Milky Way and right? There's a direct connection now. And so to me, when you step outside, you're in nature. Now, when you step outside in New York City, that's a slightly different nature than one that makes us feel like we're really comfortable. And that's, you know, so then you can go to Central Park or one of the local parks, and you begin to see the other beings in nature, like trees, like insects, like the animals. And then the more we can immerse ourselves in that form of nature, I think the more we can derive the benefits of nature that I'm speaking to, and the more we can meet, our soul can meet the soul of nature.
Right. And so I guess that's what inspired you to create this workshop.
Yeah, well, it did. And what actually, in tandem with the Interspiritual Counseling Program, the Spiritual Counseling Program, you know, that was one of the terms that has been used in the past to describe what we do. But the field is really moving more towards calling it spiritual companioning, because we're not really doing counseling. We're creating sacred space. We're holding that sacred space, and our counselee or our companion in that space to allow them to reach their own answers, to find the knowledge they have within, and we know they have it within, their own connection with spirit. So we help them cultivate their own connection with spirit. So this workshop helps using nature as a way to uncover their answers, to uncover their connection with spirit. I found myself wanting a way to incorporate spiritual counseling into my love of nature and into meeting spirit in nature. You know, how can we put those together? And so a lot of this comes from Bill Plotkin's work about really bringing it down into nature and discovering your soul in nature.
And so that leads me to my next question. So this is a 4-week workshop that's taking place on Tuesdays beginning in March. So what would this workshop entail? What could someone expect from this workshop?
So here's the overlap between, you know, the natural world and the cycles of the natural world and the counseling program, is that there are 4 seasons. And so I've created practices that go with each season. And in the best of all worlds, I do one of these in each season, but that doesn't, you know, that doesn't work for our elective process. So what I will do is go through each of the seasonal practices on each of the 4 nights. So the first one will start with spring and creative practices, and then we move into, we have relational practices for the summer, we have meditative we have movement practices for the fall, and meditative practices for the winter. So this program will allow, in fact, we'll ask each person to take these practices for that week in between sessions and take them out into nature and come back and report. And then we'll talk into new ones, and we'll do them for the next week. And so part of the workshop is to give you those practices to work each week so that you get a feel for them, and then to do them however they'll work for you in each season, a couple of weeks of the season, or however.
Yes, and I think that's one of the benefits of having it be over several weeks, to give all of the participants a chance to really experience it, integrate it into their way of being, and just move along in the process as the weeks go along. That's great.
Absolutely.
And so if there is one takeaway that you would hope for participants to experience as a result of taking your workshop, what would that thing be?
That we are an integral aspect of nature. And the more we connect directly with her, the more this world will be just fine.
Beautiful.
And so will you.
Yes, beautiful.
It's so easy for people to contact spirit when they go out in nature. You know, like you just feel it. You just stop for a moment. You're like, wow, of course, you know? And so things drop away and it just becomes easier. And then from there, you can grow your spirituality because you've got something, you've got an anchor, a tether. So